All filmmakers struggle with procrastination, so this week I'm sharing some ideas on how to get stuff done. Hello, my name is Cade and this is DSLRguide. So we've all been there where we know that we've got tons of work to do, but you still find yourself in that constant cycle between Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. So what I've done is I've put together a list of the 10 things which have really helped me to stay focused. So the first thing is to organize your time. Now I think the part of filmmaking where time is most valuable is when you're on set. So generally the idea is that you do as much work in pre-production so that you can then just kind of turn up on set and get as much done in as quick, efficient time as possible. So this usually means doing a storyboard or a shot list and just doing as much of the creative process, kind of imagining it in your head. So the more preparation you do before the shoot, the more work you'll be able to get done on the actual shoot. And usually this just means doing things like organizing your schedule around the actors and around the locations. You know, if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of scenes in one place, well, why not do all of those scenes first rather than kind of going to that location and then going back and forth and back and forth. You know, no one shoots a movie in chronological order. However, I find that it's hardest to focus when you're actually away from set. So if you're doing some editing or some writing, you know, when it's just you on your own, that's the time when it really is hard to kind of concentrate. So these next few tips are kind of more based on that sort of thing. So the first one is to make sure you have a to-do list. So just every day having a list of things that you want to do is really useful, because then you don't have to try and keep this in your head, you don't have to try and remember everything, and it just kind of splits everything up, and then you get that nice achievement when you actually tick it off and say I'm done. There are lots of apps for your phone, or there are websites that you can sign up to, or you could always go for a pen and paper, but you know, it's good to kind of have, every time you have a task you need to do, to be able to put it in and then say the date when it's due, so then you can see which ones you need to do earlier and which ones you need to do later. Now the next tip is to do the hardest tasks last. So usually a lot of people think, well, sure, I should get the tough stuff out of the way, but I think at least that the best thing you can do is to start the day by doing the easiest tasks. So let's say you just have to phone someone up, you know, that's going to be really easy, but you've been putting it off for a while. I think it's very good to just get those easy tasks done. It means that there's a lot less to do for the rest of the day, and it just gets that kind of sense of accomplishment, which is a great way to kind of get the ball rolling. Number 4, think about your working environment. I find that if I can go somewhere else to work on something, then I'm usually a lot more focused and I'm a lot more productive without having to try any harder. It's just because I'm in a different location, it makes it a lot easier. So the problem is that if you're working from home, that home is a place associated with relaxing, and I think this is why a lot of writers will go somewhere else. You know, you often hear about people writing in coffee shops, and just to kind of have a different environment so you can say, this is where I go to work and this is where I go to relax, and that kind of helps to keep that line between relaxing and working. The next tip is to give yourself deadlines, especially if you're doing like a personal project. The worst thing you can do is say, well, I'll just kind of keep going until I'm finished, because otherwise, firstly, you'll never finish it because you always want to keep tweaking it, but also it really helps to have a solid time frame so that you don't put it off anymore. And then you can say, at least on the last day, you know, right, tomorrow's the deadline, I need to finish it tonight. And it's having these kind of, you can even split it up into lots of different deadlines and kind of a weekly thing maybe, and just having these things, and if you stick by them, then you'll find that that actually is a really good way to make sure that it doesn't kind of all pile up. Number 6 is a bit of an abstract one, but there's been loads of scientific evidence saying that people who exercise are a lot more focused, a lot more productive, a lot more happy, and guess what? Happy people are also a lot more productive. So in a way, you could be doing yourself a lot of favors if you just decide to go out for a run once a week. You know, just think about that healthy body, healthy mind and all that stuff. The next one is about self-control. Sometimes you have to limit yourself, and that's actually a lot easier than just trying to not do something. So for example, let's say you've got a bit addicted to Facebook and you go on Facebook every 10 minutes. Well, although it might be quite difficult to say, I'm never going to go on Facebook today, but actually there are web apps you can get which will disable Facebook or whatever websites you want to, or you can limit the amount of time you spend on them. And just setting up something like this, which even though it still does require some self-control because there's nothing stopping you from deleting that app, but sometimes just having that little barrier which reminds you, oh yeah, I said I wasn't going to do this. These little restrictions you can do is a lot easier than just saying, no, I won't go on Facebook. So I do think that these are valid things. Again, on the blog post, I'll put a link to where you can find that website blocker app as well as some to-do list apps. Now, the next thing is to take breaks. There's been a lot of scientific studies which have said that our brains are not supposed to work on one thing focused for a long amount of time. And they've done loads of studies showing kind of brain activity and stuff, and what they found pretty much is that if you just take a short break, then you'll be doing yourself a real favor. And just having that, even though you might think, well, I need to get it done, so I need to just go absolutely full on with this, just actually having a 10-minute break every hour, for example, that might actually mean that you get more work done than if you'd just done it in one go. Number 9 is that it's okay to feel stressed. Now, a lot of people in our society today will tell you that stress can give you cancer and all these terrible things about how bad stress is. But I saw a really good TED talk, which I recommend that you check out again, link on the blog post. But this was basically saying that stress is more like adrenaline. So stress is our body's way of coping with things that seem to be kind of piling up on us. And if you see it with a positive attitude, that's saying, yes, I feel stressed, but that's okay, this is just my body's way of dealing with a tough situation, then actually it can kind of turn around, it can be something helpful, and all of those health problems are actually associated with having a bad attitude towards stress rather than stress. So again, just recommend you check out the TED Talk. It's a really good TED Talk if you haven't seen it. And the final one is that cliche that says the hardest part is getting started. And I totally agree with this, that sometimes you'll just be putting it off for ages and ages, and you just have to say to yourself, look, I'm going to force myself to get started. And once you do, you kind of build up momentum, and then it's a lot easier than you thought it was going to be. So that is my final advice, is that to just, at the end of the day, it does just take some willpower to kind of keep focused and to be productive. But hopefully some of these tips have helped you with some of the kind of subconscious things, so that it's not just completely about knuckling down and saying, right, I'm going to do the work. But of course, that is something that does come into it. So hopefully that's been helpful, and I'll see you next time.